Hi there, Robin.
Hi, it was very difficult getting in.
Me
There we
too.
go. You're here now. Good to
Yeah.
see you. So your item is first on the agenda, but if you wouldn't mind
I'll mute
just muting and
if I
turning
can.
your camera off, that would be great until it comes up. Karen, we're at 5. Meg is just double checking that the live stream is up, and we are good to go. All yours. Oh, sorry, one sec. Hi, Michael. Thanks for
Hi,
joining.
my pleasure.
So we're just about to start.
Oh,
So
great.
if you wouldn't mind, good that everything's working on your end. If you wouldn't mind just turning your camera and mic off until your item comes up, and then we'll pass
Yes,
it
sure,
over.
of course.
Thanks. Okay, take it away, Karen.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Heritage Permit Review Subcommittee to order, May 21st, 2024. Please note that quorum is present. Do we have any declarations of interest today? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed. I would also like to make the following statement. Members of the public are advised that individuals and the media may be audibly and or visually recording this meeting. Please note that while the meeting is open to the public for observation, any member of the public wishing to provide comment on any of the agenda items are encouraged to contact Cultural Heritage Planning staff or may choose to give a delegation to the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee. Okay. So you have before you the agenda for today. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? This, if anybody can help me see people putting up their hands, because I honestly can't see very much here.
I can help with you, Karen. So I see Carol and Katie.
Thank you very
Sorry.
much.
I don't know if it's the case of me transitioning to the heat or being back after 4 days. I don't know. Mine's
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear
maybe
that.
it's just that long story
Matthew,
short, Vivian's been sort of
Matthew, we can hear you. I'm not sure if you should be muted right now or not.
sandboxing different new ways to identify unique clients. So, awesome.
I'm gonna just try to mute Matthew on my end here. Here we go. Okay. So I see Carol and Katie for that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed? No, okay. Seeing no one, that agenda is approved as presented. Okay, approval of minutes from the previous meeting. So you have the minutes from the previous meeting, and I hope you've all had a chance to review them. That was from April 15th, 2024. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I see Katie and Carol.
Carol, okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented, as carried. Okay, now on to the heritage permit reviews. Heritage permit applications, we have 5 to review this evening on the agenda. So, number 1 is 10.1, heritage permit 2024-008, 262 McNabb Street North, Hamilton, and that's a Part 4 property. The application is for masonry repairs to the front facade, including grinding out existing mortar joints to sound material and repointing with type N mortar. Is the owner or applicant here to speak to the application?
Yes.
Okay, and could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Robin McKee, the owner of 262 McNabb Street North.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Robin. So would you like to speak to the project for a few moments before we discuss it?
Yeah, what happened was that raccoons and squirrels were getting into my neighbor's attic, and there was an area at the top of the fascia where they were going through. a contractor went up to take a look, and what happened was that he saw that it was worse than just a raccoon going in. What he found was the wood, if you can see that. I can't see it. Was diminishing away because of water damage, also that probably took place prior to me owning the property, and that he thought that there was an imminent collapse to be happening. So I hired them immediately to fix it. And what they did was they went in and they put in a new frame across the top, assisted in some 2x4s, and put in a metal. I don't know what you call it. Bar that would be sistered into the roof and the facade, and then because the bricks were wobbling, at that point it was a full mortar point. It was an emergency. They put police tape up for public safety. They did not allow me to use my front door because the vibration of shutting the door may have collapsed the facade. So that is why I did not apply immediately for a permit review. It had to be done for public safety.
And so this work has already been completed.
Already completed. They went right down to the foundation.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
This is retroactive because the work is done.
Yes. Alyssa, can you see any questions?
I don't see any hands up, Karen, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, then. Can staff please put up the recommended conditions for approval?
Actually, on this one, because it is retroactive and the work's already been conducted, there's no recommended conditions for the approval.
Okay, then may I have a mover and a seconder to put recommended approval of this permit 2024-008 forward?
I see Katie. Looking for a seconder, and Steve.
And Steve, thank you. Anyone opposed?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, thank you. This is carried as presented. Thank you very much, Robin, for coming by and presenting to the committee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank my neighbor for calling it in because I was in a panic mode when this occurred. If I would not have done the work, what happened was that the damage might have even occurred to her side. So I jumped on the occasion, got it fixed. That's the kind of guy I am. And if you want to know the price, it was $40,000.
Yeah, understand. Okay, all right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to have, approval, heritage permit review before. However, I understand it was public safety, so I'm glad.
But and it was an emergency. Yes, I couldn't open and close my front door
Okay.
because of the vibration.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Much appreciated.
And thank you very much. The raccoons are still in the attic next door.
Yeah.
Thank you. Am I done?
Yes, you're done. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you
Robin.
ever so much for doing that. I know the rules. I just was
Exactly.
at that point where I couldn't get there in time, and I panicked. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, moving on.
Karen,
Yes.
Karen, sorry, Alyssa here. If I may, just as a PSA, so we had advised Robin, if you're aware of other owners who have this kind of situation, we do still encourage you to reach out to Heritage staff to notify them and to talk about the scope, even if it is emergency and you need to get retroactive approval. So just something to be aware of in the future. Obviously, these kind of situations happen and sometimes work needs to happen immediately. But please do reach out to our Culture Heritage Planning team and we'll have a conversation and make sure that any immediate work that's done is something that would be supportable through a future heritage permit as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that PSA. Okay, moving on to the second application for this evening, 10.2. HP 2024-013, 157 Mill Street North in Flamborough, also known as Waterdown Grace Anglican Church. It's a Part 5 building. So the application is to repair the damaged stained glass window on the northwest elevation of the building, including temporarily removing the window for repair off-site, dismantling, cleaning, re-leading, and cementing the window and adding round bars for additional support, repair of the wood window sill, replacement of the rotted wood window frame in kind, specifically cedar, painting and caulking of the reconstructed window frame and sill, reinstallation of the restored stained glass window, and installation of a new vented and tempered glass storm window wrapped in low-profile aluminum frame to match the exterior paint color. So do we have a representative from the application here this evening?
That would be me.
Okay, great. Would you like to introduce yourself and take a few moments to describe the project?
Sure. I'm Kayla Stinson. I'm the outreach coordinator of Grace Anglican Church. I'm the one who put in the application. So we need to repair and protect the stained glass window in what's our former guild room, which is now called the Doobie Room at Grace Anglican Church in Waterdown. So the original part of the church was constructed in 1860. However, this addition is from, I believe the construction started in 1908 and was completed in 1915 for this portion of the building, which is our original church hall. It is a large arched window that's measuring approximately 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and it's on the northwest corner of the building. It's about 4 feet off the ground is where it starts. So the current window needs to be repaired due to age and the elements breaking down the window and its frame. The sills and part of the window wooden mullions and frame are rotting, and the glass is bowing in and out in different areas. And the leading is just coming apart in a few areas and leaving holes in the window. To fix the window, it'll be removed and dismantled, and each piece of the glass will be cleaned and re-leaded and cemented into place. This part will be done off-site. Additional round bars will be placed for support of the window, and while the window is out, as you said, it will be the rotten frame portions will be removed and replaced with the new cedar, as the original was cedar. Everything will be repainted into the same or as close a color as we can get to the original frame, and then the leaded window will be reinstalled. We also want to install a low-profile aluminum frame that matches the exterior paint and a tempered glass storm window on the outside. This is because this area of the building has actually been vandalized in the past, back in 2018. Fortunately, they did not damage the window itself, but they did damage the stonework around it. So we would like to make sure that no damage does happen to this window, as it's quite old and we want to protect it.
Okay, thank you, Kayla. The members of the committee may have a few questions for you. Is anyone have any questions?
Not seeing any hands, Karen. Just give it a sec. Nope, not seeing anything on my screen.
Okay, I had one question then. Am I correct in understanding that this window is not really visible from the front, or it's sort of around the back? Is that correct?
So this window is, sorry, I'm just looking outside the window right now, to a different window right now to try and describe it. It's towards the edge of our building and it's kind of blocked by the school next door, so it isn't visible from either street. And it's not really visible from the pathway through our property, which is why we think this area might be a little bit more at risk, which is why we want to protect it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and there's no other questions then?
Not seeing any, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Could we see the staff recommended conditions, please?
Seeing my PowerPoint slide right now?
I am. So are these the standard conditions then? Is that correct? There's nothing added here?
Yep, just the 2 standard conditions for this. They're quite detailed outline and scope of work from a qualified consultant that was provided with this application.
Okay. All right then, may I have a mover and a seconder to put this approval of the heritage permit 2024-013, subject to these presented conditions? May I have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
I see Carol and Katie.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone opposed?
Not seeing any.
Okay, hearing none then, that motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much for coming in to see us. Really appreciate it. Good luck
Thank
with
you.
the project.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the third agenda item. 10.3, third application, HP 2024-011, 3989 Governors Road in Flamborough, Linden United Church, which is a Part 4 property. So the plan is, application is for removal of the deteriorated cupola structure and bell, including reconstruction of the rotted framing and supports at the top of the tower, capping of the top of the tower with a new metal clad hip roof, relocation of the bell on site for display and future interpretation, replacement of the rotting wood louvers and sills in the tower with new metal louvers and sills to match, and repointing the damaged brick at the base of the tower with appropriate lime-based mortar. Do we have an owner or applicant here to speak to the application?
Name's John Brooks. I'm speaking on behalf of the church.
Oh, welcome, Mr. Brooks. Would you like to take a few minutes to add anything further to the discussion?
I've jotted some things down here just to give you some history.
Okay, thank you.
Because if I don't, there'll be something I forget. Linden United Church was 154 years old 2 weeks ago. 2 months ago, we started looking to replace a bad tower wood and water leak. The tower has 4 floors. At the very top, there's a flat roof, wood floor covered with a tin. And this has been patched, and 2 or 3 years later, the water's coming through again, and it's come down through the other 2 floors underneath it and ruined those. So flat roofs, you're likely aware, are a problem wherever they are. A lot of maintenance. So we'd like to get rid of that flat roof and eliminate some of the maintenance that goes along with it. Now, to do that, there's a cupola sitting on top of this floor, and it has a bunch of bad wood in it too. And there's a bell sitting there on this floor, and the bell has a little lean to it now. And it's been determined that that bell weighs about 1,000 pounds. And if the bell took a notion to move downward, there'd be nothing stopping it. So for the last 2 months, we've had this is a main door, one of 2 main doors into the church through this bell tower. And we've had it ramped off or roped off for 2 months now, shipping everybody through the other door. We're at a standstill with this now. We've had an engineer involved. You've likely seen the paperwork on that.
Mhm.
He's made recommendations. So we'd hope to make this tower safe and dry for $20,000, talking to the contractor. Anyway, once we got into this, we went up, they sent a drone up, they sent a lift up, and the engineer and contractor spent about 3 hours up there surveying the situation, trying to decide what would be the best way to go with it. And the end result now is that the extra work that's involved that we financed in the beginning, we borrowed money and we had some donations made to come up with it. Well, now it's looking like we could 40 to 50 to make this thing safe and dry. This work, the bell and the cupola have to come down. We don't have a problem displaying the bell. We'd like to build an area there to display it and some history plaque to go with it. The cupola, whatever we might do to that, it's going to be wood again for sure. And it's going to be subject to the same weather problems that we've ruined the floor there. We'd like to go with a four-sided metal roof. Not unusual what I've seen at other churches around the area. They've had the same problems we have. And we'd like to make that look as good as we can. We're talking of putting metal shingles on there. Looks better than just straight steel. And we'd like to repair, there's louvered windows on four sides. They're all deteriorated. And the contractor for the metal roof, the shingles, he has the ability to duplicate those louvers in metal and would reduce that maintenance again. So we'd like to do that. So where we're at right now is we're just kind of held up, waiting for some permissions from people involved so we can get moving. Like we've been sitting now for 2 months. He'd like to know where he's at so he can book other work too. So if we could get some recommendations from you, the committee there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna let Jason, the contractor, talk now too.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, hello. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. I'm just gonna turn John's volume down. We contracted the engineer to come out and take a look at what was going on. The preliminary drawings, the architectural drawings that we submitted, there are 2 separate pages. I'd like to propose the alterations made on the second page, just in the sense of cost efficiency for our client and the church. I feel like if we can eliminate potentially doing some of the cornice work and dormers on the proposed replacement roof, it's going to save a lot of money. The other thing I think we need to take into consideration, unbeknownst to our engineer, the proposed location for the new, or at least the location to place the existing cupola and the bell is actually sitting on top of a septic bed. So we need to amend that as part of the drawings. I'm not sure Ryan had that information. So from what I understand, like we're trying to do this job for them. It's the most cost efficient way, which sort of satisfies your needs from the Heritage Committee. There's not an abundance of money to go around, but it's obviously a safety hazard and needs to be repaired. It's quite a large job. I need to get some fairly large equipment in here, like a 90-ton crane, do a lot of work from the parking lot. That's, you know, you're probably talking about $7,000 in crane fees plus an 80-ton, 80-foot rather, genie boom. I mean, that's like $7,500 for the time I'm going to need it for. So we're just trying to keep the cost down for the church. So anything that you guys can allow us to do to mitigate the costs would be helpful.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jason. Okay, let's move on. Are there any questions from the committee of either John or Jason, please? Okay, I see Carol. So we'll start with her, and then if there's further people, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the roof of the cupola. Will those little dormers be retained when you put on the new roof? I think maybe you mentioned something, but I missed it. So if you could just let me know that part.
Can I share with you guys? I don't know how to share a screen.
Here.
Sure, Jason, Alyssa here. And if you're having issues, I could also share on my end, but you should be at the bottom, on the bottom bar. There
It's
should be a
saying it won't
share
let-
button.
Yeah, it's giving me a red error message. Alyssa, do you have the drawings that I sent you?
Yes, just one sec here. And the
Just to
members,
answer-
You know, these have been all shared with the committee as well, so it won't be new to anybody, but let's take a look at them, please.
Okay, so I guess the original drawings were to replace the cornice and the dormers that were existing. But I think the proposal that we're putting forward is the idea of retaining the existing cupola and belfry to bring it down here intact and potentially use that for the new structure over top of the proposed location for the displaying the bell. I really think that these dormers, the millwork that's inquired with this, as well as the cornice work, is just going to increase the costs. If you guys can mitigate the church, it would be greatly appreciated. If I can retain the existing structure down below, I think that suffices the need and what you're looking for, as far as retaining the heritage and having it on display. Again, in relation to the first matter you guys had this evening, this is more of an emergency situation. I was talking to Alyssa when she was here on site. I don't think it's feasible to be able to remove the bell without taking the cupola down in saving costs. Again, I'm looking at about $3,300 a day in crane fees just to remove this, in order to avoid road closures and hydro disconnects and stay safe over, not bringing any of this over top of neighboring properties. So I can make this happen. It's not really a matter of like every day I bring this crane here, it's another $3,300. So for me to just remove that bell, ideally I need to do this all in one shot. That as you guys know, $3,300 a day jumps quite quickly. And then even the brick repointing, and then all of the louver replacements. So as you're St. George there, I think you just skim past it, is a church, I believe, of the same age, and they replaced theirs with just a straight hip roof, just like that. I think is what we're going for. If I can retain the existing cupola and belfry and leave it down on the ground for display purposes, I think this would help the church a lot, as far as their finances in relation to this project. So that's kind of what we're asking for today is approval of the preliminary drawings, at least in the second page there, what's presented right there for that hip roof, to not have the cornice and dormers, and retain that feature on the existing structure down below.
Carol, did you have any further questions?
I was kind of concerned, but I think it's a good solution. I see now and I understand better that they're going to put the cupola down as a display, and then they're going to just roof the tower instead of putting the open arrangement on the tower. So yeah, I think it's fine. I saw the picture of the other one, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
And then I just need approval from you guys. So based on the drawings that there's a proposed location for this essentially staged area. It's sitting right now currently on a septic bed. I can't put it there. I can't put a concrete pad there. So I would have to move it. Specifically where, John, I don't know. Sorry, we're sitting here together. I'm with John as well. We're just on different computers.
Yeah.
I think he was presenting the option of perhaps putting it closer to the front door somewhere, but literally right where that says in those drawings, there's a septic field there.
Okay, so that's still to be decided then, is where that would be located. Can I ask, are there any other questions from the committee, please? Well, we have our applicants here.
Seeing any, Karen? And I'll also note, as you'll see in a minute in terms of the draft staff recommended conditions, we do have include provisions in terms of these details being worked out through staff. So if there's a level of comfort with the subcommittee on this, in terms of what Jason just went over and John spoke to, then we could handle those as conditions of the approval.
John here again.
Uh,
Going to ask at the next meeting if Heritage has any funds available to help with this construction. So could you, we're doubling here on volume.
Alyssa, is that something that you would discuss?
Can you hear me still?
Can
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we had two sources here at the same time. I just ask if there's any help available from the Heritage Foundation for projects like this, because the next board meeting, I know I'm gonna be asked where we're gonna get this money from. So if you could that and get back to me through Alyssa or whoever, I could have some more information or ammunition or whatever you want to call it for the next board meeting.
John,
And in the meantime,
Alyssa here. I'd be happy to follow up with you. I think we might have mentioned it when we were on site, but weren't sure of the timing of things because they're within our city heritage grant and loan programs for designated properties. The funding needs to be squared away before the work commences. But if there's a phasing to this and maybe the initial cupola removal happens, but then the larger repair work happens over time, then maybe there is an opportunity to take advantage of those programs. So I'd be happy to share that information with you and with Jason and chat through any questions you might have.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess right now, the foremost problem we have is getting this paperwork and a go-ahead to repairs. As it is a hazardous thing with that bell setting up there on an angle. And if it started to come down and got veered off to the side and took one of the walls out, we'd have a way bigger problem than we have now. So consider that too.
Understood. Carol, did you have another question?
Actually, I just thought of something when we were looking at any additional funding for this sort of work. I know that I'm on the board of the Hamilton Heritage Foundation, and I know that, you know, something like this or part of this kind of project has been funded in, like I said, in part by the Hamilton Heritage Foundation. So maybe I could give Alyssa, you know, the contact and perhaps maybe an idea of what has been funded. We do have a website now, and I know that the foundation is looking to fund a project to an extent. I mean, you know, there's only so much they can do, but you know, they are looking at possible candidates for funding. So maybe would that be all right if I send you the website so you can see projects and also give you the name of the chair and all that and contact information? Does that sound okay? Then you could pass it along, and then perhaps there could be some discussion with, you know, with the foundation and just with the you know, the client. And I would actually ask first, and maybe I would have a better idea when we're having a meeting actually in about maybe 2 weeks, definitely 2 weeks. So I know how expensive these things are, and maybe even just, you know, just displaying the bell or moving the bell or something like that, some aspect of the project. I'll ask about that at the meeting. And so in 2 weeks, for sure, you might know, or I could even, I can get that to the board before that. How does that, is that okay to do that? Yeah,
That would be great, Carol. Yeah, if you want to send that through me and I can pass that along, that'd be wonderful.
I'll send that through you, Alyssa. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Carol. And I would just like to add that, I mean, it would be great to have the new louvers in and such. It's unfortunate that the cupola won't be there any longer, but understood why. So yeah, I'm sure the congregation's a little disappointed as well, but it's reality. So are there any further questions? Doesn't seem like it. So okay, then may I have a mover and a seconder to put the oh, actually, have we seen the conditions yet? Yes. Okay, thank you. So is there anything here that you need to highlight for us, Alyssa, as in special conditions?
Yeah, so the first 3 here are special conditions. The regular conditions are at the bottom, but as I mentioned, there's a draft condition for the final details of the reconstructed tower to come back through staff. And what I'm hearing here today is that the subcommittee is comfortable with the initial alternative for not recreating the features on the new roof. The second one here is for the final details for the salvage, retention, and interpretation of the bell on site to come through staff for approval. So as per what was mentioned here in terms of the draft location being an issue, the new location of where that might go, that would come back through staff. And then just a special condition, but one of our standard ones around just ensuring that any masonry repairs are done in accordance with Hamilton's masonry restoration guidelines.
Okay, thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the recommended approval of the heritage permit HP 2024-011, subject to these conditions be put forward? Okay, I see Katie.
And Carol as well.
Okay. And is there anyone opposed?
Seeing none.
Hearing none, okay, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Jason, John, thank you so much for coming in. Yeah.
Well,
Big-
thanks for listening. And we'll hope we can keep this moving ahead.
Yeah. You'll be in, Alyssa will be in touch with you after the meeting, so to follow up on next steps. So appreciate all the information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Have a good evening.
You too, bud.
Okay, moving along to our fourth application for this evening. 10 for HP 2024-014 54 HP in Hamilton, and that's a Part 4 property. So the project is, or the application is to cover all exposed window openings, including the east bay window, with black painted exterior grade plywood. Roof repairs, including replacement of the missing portion of cladding to the east bay window, removal and replacement of the deteriorated leading edge of the roof, masonry repairs, including selective repointing of the north elevation, and removal of the awning in the east elevation. Is the owner or applicant present at the meeting? Like to give some words?
Absolutely. I'm the applicant, the owner's representative on this, James Hargraves. James Hargraves Architect is my business. And yeah, let me give you as fulsome a story as I know it. This owner group purchased this building sometime before the pandemic. They had a potential vision of a redevelopment into a residential development. It didn't turn out to be financially viable, and so they regrouped and were considering the demolition of the building and a brand new building being put in its place. At that time, when they made the application for the demolition, I understand that this group recognized the heritage value of the property and designated it. I've had a number of conversations with the owner to enlighten him as to why that would have happened. I recognize it's a Second Empire style building, which is quite unique and relatively rare in Ontario. And so I see where you guys are coming from. But with rising interest rates and having to regroup around what to do with this property, the owner finds himself in a bit of a predicament because there's no clear path forward immediately for how to redevelop the property and now on the go forward retain the heritage elements. So the application here and now is a response to a property standards order that was issued I guess near the end of last year in October. I was brought onto the file at the owner's request in April to say, what do we need to do here and how would we do it? So I saw the property, I went through what the property standards order had listed as concerns. And I mean, they really fall into the four groups that were spoken of: window coatings in certain areas, roof fascia, gutters, portion of the windows at the upper level where they bond at the roof, mortar bonding in particular on a large section of the north elevation. And it was also listed that there were two chimneys on the north side of the building that were at risk of falling down. So it should be said, just so everybody knows, that the owner recognized that those chimneys were actually, he perceived that they might be imminently at risk of failure and falling. And For those who know the building, it's right there on the street. There's a sidewalk right underneath it. And so he proactively reduced the height of those chimneys and repaired the openings in the roof. So if and when in the future reconstructive work can be done, I think part of that future proposal might be to rebuild those chimneys to their original form, but they've been reduced in height right now. And that was done in good faith by the owner before my involvement, but was really meant as a life safety issue. What I saw on the other issues that were listed on the property standards order, it included probably the most egregious aspects of some of the deterioration in the building. But when I saw it with my own eyes, really it was it didn't touch on other areas that I think are perhaps not quite as serious, but certainly contributing to the long-term deterioration of the historical elements. And what I mean by that is that although the property standards order called out the worst of the delamination of the coating, essentially paint on some of the wood frame windows. Really, all of the windows on the building are in a bad state, certainly bad enough to be potentially deteriorating the underlying wood further. I saw sections that could be repaired. I saw sections that in the fullness of time will probably have to be replaced. I saw some beautiful stained glass window inlays in some cases, and I probably should have said at the outset, the building's vacant and hasn't been lived in. It was a residential building that hasn't been lived in for many years, and I have not seen any evidence of anybody squatting in the building or staying in the building today, but they could certainly gain access relatively easily, and potentially fires and at a minimum further damage to the building could happen as a result of vandalism. So that's the long story on why a portion of the application is actually to cover these windows. The general intent of the application is to stabilize the building, protect it, including its historic elements, so that at a point in the future, in a more economically viable time with interest rates lower, hopefully, and a vision for how to incorporate the historic elements, that they will be there and intact and ready to incorporate as part of a larger redevelopment of the site. So that's why the window coverings. With the roof fascia, gutters, and the portion of the roof that may be loose, I did not personally attempt to describe that work in detail because I think that as the owner engages with the contractor as part of this application, that there's the necessity to, discover as you go and remove and replace those portions that are perhaps hidden and not visible from the street, or, with a telephoto lens, as I used, to try to get as close a reading as possible. What we need at the end of the day is to stabilize that structure, the elements of the roof and the upper windows, such that, one, there's no life safety issue, and two, that they don't deteriorate further. And so what I'm asking for as part of the application is that a contractor go up there, do the repairs necessary, and then obtain a certification from a qualified consultant around the structural integrity. That's something that I can't speak to personally as an architect. So, we're looking more to an engineering consultant for that. On the north wall, it was called out in the property standards that the roof was at risk, or I'm sorry, the wall was at risk of leaking. There's some quite significant deterioration in the mortar joints, and they simply have to be redone. It was suggested as one alternative in the property standards order that a coating could be put on that wall. Now, speaking as an architect in an area that I know a significant amount about. I'm very resistant to do that. My concern is that if a coating is put on the exterior of stone of this age, that there'll be the risk in the long term of spalling. So the front face of that stone could break off. And I think that really the water tightness that is sought in the property standards order really can be achieved with the proper repointing of the stone that's there today. And that will assure that that wall is intact and in its original condition and performing as per its original intentions. And then there was a small element in the property standards, and it's almost an afterthought, but over the front door facing Hess Street, there's currently a light metal structure with a fabric awning over it. The awning, it's deteriorated. The metal's quite intact, but the fabric simply has to be removed. So because this property is half of a large townhouse structure, that awning extends across both entrances. And so what I'm suggesting is we should take the whole awning down, but the adjacent property owner will have to agree to that. If for whatever reason they would not, and I'd be surprised that they would not, we would certainly remove the awning over the portion that applies to this building. So in summary, and sorry for the long description, but in summary, the intent is to really protect the existing structure, the existing building, so that it will be in at least equal, if not better condition in the future when it can be really restored properly as part of a more comprehensive development.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? I see Carol. Maybe there's more. Carol, would you like to go ahead, please?
Yes, I have some questions. I didn't quite get the origin of the property standards that you're talking about with the suggestions for what to do that have been set out in this application. So is that a city property standards order, or is that?
It is. So what started my involvement was the owner shared with me property standards order, for the record 23-311639, and that was written by Mr. Chan, I believe, Andy Tran, my apologies. And he issued that on November 10th based on observations that he had made on October 24th. Now, I'm not sure, frankly, what prompted his visit and what prompted his authorship of the report, but it identified all of these things. And so as an immediate response, once I was on the file, on April 12th, I responded to his property standards order with a fairly detailed letter that described the remedies. His order had included recommended remedies to the issues that were raised. And I responded with a fairly detailed response to each of the concerns, what remedies I was recommending. And he responded subsequent to my letter by saying, thank you very much. And next step is to make application to this subcommittee. So that's how we got here.
Alyssa, do you know what department Mr. Andy Tran is in?
Yeah, Carol. So Andy actually is no longer with municipal law enforcement, but he was the municipal law enforcement officer at the time that issued the order within our Planning Economic Development Department. And just for the subcommittee's reference, a copy of James's letter is included in the note sheet package that was circulated.
Yeah, I'm just wondering from the recommendations if Andy Tran was cognizant of the importance of the heritage features, and when he's talking about covering over a masonry wall. I don't understand how a city, staff person could go there without a heritage person from
Yeah,
the city
Carol,
staff.
so I can clarify. So we do work closely with municipal law enforcement staff. We did review that order before it was issued. It gives general remedies and then also has caveat in terms of any scope of work requiring heritage permit approval. And to Mr. Hargrave's comment about the coatings or the coverings for the wall, we had agreed with his interpretation. So typically, if there's sort of water infiltration issues, sometimes they might recommend exterior waterproofing of a foundation, and we didn't feel that that was necessary. So we do work closely with our colleagues in municipal law enforcement on these. And in terms of the timing of that, this was right around the time that we were designating the property last fall and obviously addressing the concerns in terms of the state of the building. So working closely with both building, who had issued an order to comply that led to the chimneys being removed, and this property standards order in terms of helping prevent further deterioration.
Right. Yeah, I guess I just find them unusual recommendations considering the reviews we've done on buildings that had window problems and that had masonry problems, and the people did them by, putting the windows in. But I understand here there's a cost problem. I guess I can totally understand that, especially now. And I guess I'm trying to clarify what the protective measures will do to the heritage features, even if they are reversed. The protective measures are reversed and you've got the heritage features. It's like what's going to happen to the windows when you cover them up. There's a lot of dampness gets in there and it rots the wood. And things like that. And also covering over the windows on one side, did I get that right? On one side of the facade, all black covers, and then the other side windows? Yeah.
I'm recommending, and some of my recommendations exceed what Mr. Tran had suggested, because he was really looking just for a limited amount of, as he put it, coating on the frame of the window on the east side where it's most egregiously deteriorated. But when I saw it myself, I said, well, given the owner's need to stabilize the historic aspects of this building, that it's rather than just do the minimum, which is really what Mr. Tran had asked for, that something more comprehensive has to happen. And so the idea of covering all of the windows was an extension. And for the record, everybody, please understand that it's a recommendation that I make with regret. I mean, I would love for everybody to drive by and look and appreciate the windows as they are today. But the reality is, without anybody resident in the building, things like these stained glass elements in the upper portion of select windows, let alone, even if we want to be particular, and I like to be particular, many of the panes of the original windows, even the clear glass is original historic glass. It's not been replaced over the years. Like, I don't want people throwing stones through that. I don't want people breaking in through that. And so rather than just say, yeah, we'll paint these windows that Mr. Tran identified as having lost their paint, really what we need to do is protect them all for the current term, because it really would just expose the remainder of the building to potential severe deterioration and certainly vandalism. So there's elements here of my own interpretation, and so yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, but obviously being in the business you're in, and you will know the effect of boarding up windows on the appearance of the building, and that Hamilton has a lot of boarded up windows. It is not a good message to give to residents and visitors to the city. I know when I came to Hamilton, there were so many boarded up windows. It looked like, it was, they're all ready to be torn down. It's pretty grim. So that's one point. If you don't have to do it, I would say do anything but. The other thing is, say you do it and somehow it's approved here. Do you have any idea of time frame for when they would come down and you'd be able to maybe work on the windows? And even if, you see, I photographed that building really, really well about a year ago, especially for this, for this last fall kind of designation. I had my own photographs. So yeah, I did see a lot of peeling paint. I saw a lot of neglect over time. So yes, I saw it, but I didn't see anything that was, worried me in terms of something falling over, falling down, a wall cracking open, or I didn't see any holes in the windows. So have there been, people throwing things through the windows? I didn't see that in all the time I've been in Hamilton, but could have been
Thankfully
recent.
not. Yeah, thankfully not. As of my last visit there, all of the windows remain intact. And your two questions are interrelated, really. I had challenged the owner as to what his potential timeline and his partner's potential timeline may be for redevelopment. And not surprisingly, I got a bit of an education in interest rates and the financing industry. So it is a little unknown at this point until interest rate environment goes down and there's an opportunity to finance something at scale here, because it really is a comprehensive redevelopment that would incorporate the best elements of this building. It's very much to be decided in terms of the timeline. So personally, I wanted to protect as much as possible. I agree with you that the stone walls are in no risk of coming down. Certainly, there's gaps, and those should be addressed with repointing of the mortar. But that's why I was very reluctant to endorse putting a coating on it, because I'd hate to be driving by there in 10 years' time and see that the stone had actually delaminated as a result of that. I mean, it's been there for over 100 years, probably 150 years now, very happily being wetted and drying, just as all the stone elements on old buildings do, and is very much intact. So I'm very reluctant to disrupt that. If it's not broke, don't fix it situation, if you will.
Exactly.
So we could certainly say, well, let's just do the minimum that Mr. Tran identified, and just repair the east window that he said is really the egregious one, and take our chances. I don't mean that as a challenge. I don't know how to say it better, but hope that nobody damages the glass and the windows and the other windows that weren't identified as concerns for now. And to be reasonable, it's been vacant for quite a while, and nothing has happened yet. It's just if somebody were to gain access and start a little source to cook their meal there, it could be a challenge.
Yes, that is a problem.
Carol, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
Sorry if I may, and just to further what James was saying there. So it is within, although not in the order originally, when the property was only subject to a notice of intention to designate at the time. It is common practice in our property standards bylaw for designated properties that are vacant to cover the windows with boarding that's painted black, which would be separate from maybe a non-designated property where you'd see regular plywood covering windows. We have that provision to paint black, as is included in this application.
Yeah.
To give it the appearance of someone caring for this building, to try to prevent those exact things that we're talking about in terms of potential vandalism, and especially not knowing the timeline for when potential rehabilitation work might happen.
And Ms. Golden, I made my recommendation for the record in ignorance of that. So I just thought it was the right thing to do. You know, with reluctance, because I don't like to drive through town and see vacant buildings, and it is a you're communicating to everybody with those boards on the windows that it's vacant, and it's not something you really want to tell the world, but it seems like a minor effort. But you know, I said let's use exterior grade plywood. Let's paint it black, which will be complementary with the color of the building, so that it won't be any worse than it has to be. And then when the day comes in the future, we can take that off, and at least all of the components are still there and ready to go. Because realistically, you've designated it, which means someday, maybe it's me, someday it's going to be somebody else is going to come before you and say, we have this great idea for this property, and you know, sadly, we can't make the interior work, but these two main facades in particular, the big high impact, historically relevant north and east facades of this building are going to be incorporated into that future development and fully restored as part of that development. And you know, hopefully that comes sooner than later, but that's going to come before you, and you're going to decide, well, you know, I hope you won't be looking and going, oh, I really wish that you know, that stained glass was still there, but some dumb kid or otherwise, you know, thought it was good for target practice, stuff like that, you know, and so it's reluctant. The application has reluctant elements personally in terms of what has been put on the table, but it's practical. You know, my sincere belief, practical in terms of protecting the elements as best as possible, so that another day from now we'll be able to say, oh, you know, thank goodness that stuff's still there, and still has that presence on those two major streets.
There may be more questions. I just wanted to say a comment here. Or a question, I guess, is around if we do board up the windows, does that cause more damage to the heritage elements? Well, like as Carol pointed out, are you going to cause more molding and decay behind the boards when you mount them? Are you going to be destroying, you know, shattering the glass or whatever? Are there ways to do this that is really not potentially dangerous to the heritage elements as they are? And maybe that's a question more for the heritage person, Alyssa, or because I'm not sure if you've actually dealt with that, James. I don't know.
Excuse me. It is something that I was concerned about. The means by which the actual connection, like I certainly don't want somebody to come along with a circular saw and a screwdriver and cut the plywood to the size of the window and then screw it into the window frames. What I was envisioning instead, and I'm speaking somewhat naively here, because there may be standards, and I would welcome the standards if they exist, but what I would like to see is to have a strapping behind the actual exterior facing piece of plywood, so that it's separate from the window to address that mold concern, and then that the connection on the other side of the window is such that it's mechanically fastened across, and maybe that requires taking out a couple of the panes of glass for the future. So as I don't want it screwed into the frame. You know, that would be terrible, because that will just accelerate any deterioration that's there today. I welcome any recommendations. I don't know if there are standards there in the city.
Yeah, Karen, I can pass along that information to James in terms of the existing property standards bylaw, which speaks to how to apply the hoarding to cover windows in these situations. So James, I can pass that
Perfect.
along. And
Perfect. Thank
it
you.
addresses some of those concerns. And then in terms of, securing windows and openings from the perspective of breathability of a building, in this situation, it has been vacant for, I believe, more than a decade, and the utilities have been cut. So in terms of the elements and it's a semi-detached building. The other half is occupied and is obviously still heated and cooled and everything else. But in terms of the risk versus the additional damage that could be caused by hoarding, really what we want to do here is make sure the building's secure and we're preventing further damage. And the potential issues related to ventilation, I think, would be at the bottom of the list here.
Okay, I guess I
Oh,
had one other
thank you.
question is around the second level, and even, is there third level windows? I can't remember. If that's absolutely necessary. I mean, what do people think? I mean, yeah, target practice, I don't know. Is it necessary to do it? It, as was discussed, it is a really negative thing to see buildings all boarded up. And so I don't know. I guess that's a decision that has to be taken as to whether you do the ground floor where people could potentially climb in, or really feels necessary to do the entire building, the entire half of the building.
I'll have to defer to the group here. I can imagine certain diligent individuals, mostly younger individuals, that could get in through those upper windows, but I do respect what you're saying. To mitigate the most obvious risk, it would be the lower windows. I personally would feel more secure if all three levels were done. But if there's a real concern, perhaps we could just do the first two. It is very, very hard to get a stone thrown to the third level. You would be able to get on the roof because there's fire escapes on both buildings, both sections of the building. And we can't control the more southerly half of the building. But you can get up there, and I mean, somebody really wanted to get in. It wouldn't be me, but there's certainly people that have the agility and will to get in. So it's
Erin,
a
I'll just say
question.
that Heritage staff are supportive of the application as submitted in terms of the covering of all the windows from a protective standpoint, if that's helpful.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I see Matthew has his hand up. He did have it up before and had lowered it and raised it again.
Yeah, Matthew, please go ahead.
Well, that's fine. Thank you for bringing the application. The neighboring building, 56 Hess Street. I know you mentioned you are an architect, not an engineer. Is there any, based on your site visits, has there been any indication of any structural damage as a result of the current property standards and vacancy of the building at hand right now?
I didn't look at it specifically for that reason, but I did have a walk around the other half to see what relative condition it was in as a benchmark. And from the ground level, interior level, I had a look at how the structure for the floors and the walls and everything were attached into the party wall or the firewall between the two halves. That wall is partially exposed, that partition between the two sides. It's masonry. It's quite substantial, and there's no evidence that I saw of any deterioration in its structural integrity. So happily, I don't think the other property owner is at any risk. I won't say this as a person with experience, but conceivably, even if something horrific were to happen and there were to be a fire, there it really is a substantial firewall. So I think that they would still be intact even in that worst case scenario. It seems sound.
And Matthew, just to let you know, the Maine Heritage Committee has also seen updates and information about this property as we've worked through the designation process. And I mentioned earlier that order to comply from our colleagues in building, they did have an engineer do an assessment of the building. It has been made safe with the chimneys being reduced and with right now the protective barriers while we wait for these additional measures in terms of repointing and the roof repairs to be done. So it is something that's being actively monitored and is currently in a quote unquote safe state in terms of the measures that have been taken so far.
If I can say, I mean, certainly there's some urgency on the part of the owner group to have those barriers removed because, of course, there's an ongoing cost that's attributable to the building and to the property as long as they're up. So there is some motivation and urgency to make it sound. In my opinion, the exterior wall on the north side, it's at risk of leaking, but it's not at risk of falling. I mean, it's quite intact, and none of the property standards recommendations were addressing any concern about its structural integrity. It was really its water tightness. The risk really that legitimizes the Jersey barriers and the protection to the general public is at the roof level, at the leading edge of the roof, where there's some irregularity in the line of the roof, and visible from the ground and with a telephoto lens, there's some visible deterioration in some of the wood elements. So in a worst case scenario, some of those pieces of wood could fall occasionally, or I don't know if they have in the past. So there's a reason to protect the public, and certainly the owner is keen to address it and get those barriers out of there so that he's not paying to protect something that just needs to be fixed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay. Okay. So we have the staff recommended conditions up on the screen. Thank you very much. And I mean, there's, go ahead, please speak to it.
Just two special conditions. The first is, as James was mentioning, not knowing the full extent of roof repairs that might need to happen so that those final details come back through staff and we don't need to come back to this subcommittee. And a standard special condition regarding just the masonry repairs be done in accordance with our masonry restoration guidelines.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Alyssa. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the recommended approval of this heritage permit 2024-014, subject to these staff recommended conditions? Mover and a seconder, please.
Katie.
Okay.
And Matthew.
Okay. Anyone opposed?
Seeing none.
Okay, hearing none. That motion is carried. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate all the information. And I also know that people are going to be really thrilled when the fence is taken down from the street and people can actually drive in Hamilton again. There's a lot of positives of getting this work done. So
yeah, if we could only remove some of them here in Toronto, we'd all be happy. But thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. I know this was a more extended discussion.
Yeah, glad we fulsome discussion. So thank you for that, everybody. Okay, thank you. All right, and so we're on to our final permit application for the day, 10.5 HP 2024-012, 115, wait, yeah, 115 to 117 George Street in Hamilton. It's a Part 4 property. So they are applying for masonry reconstruction, including cleaning of heavy soiling with non-abrasive techniques, e.g. low pressure water wash, removal of all paint layers from stone lintels and sills, and protecting with corrosive resistant paint, repointing and repairs as needed. For example, step crack and damaged bricks, etc. Infilling non-heritage openings with brick to match, including the east and west elevations, and pointed arch windows opening in north elevation, and repainting of masonry exterior walls with breathable paint. Also proposed are roof repairs, including rebuilding the roof structure, reconstruction of the brick chimneys, restoration of the wood detailing, including repair of sound wood elements, and reproduction of missing or damaged wood elements to match. And installation of new eaves troughs and downspouts. Installation of new aluminum clad 2/2 hung wood windows in existing openings. Introduction of new openings in the ground and second floor, including new window openings in the north elevation and venting, and removal of non-heritage additions, which would see photographs of, including the front solarium and side portico. So do we have a representative from the application here with us this evening?
Yes, my name is Michael Krasik. I'm here.
Welcome, Michael. Would you
Thank you.
like to take a few moments to describe the project further? Add any extra?
Sure. I think you did a great job, Karen, with respect to those heritage attributes. I guess just a quick background on it. Cold Terra Development was involved in this property since about 2020. And we were going through a zoning application for this property, but also what wrapped around to Main Street West there. And so through that, we developed a CHIA report with GBCA and worked with Alyssa and her team, and I believe the Heritage Committee as well through the rezoning application. And one of the conditions to renovating that property was completing a conservation plan for the property, which we did have GBCA complete, and that was submitted as part of this application. What we'd like to, we're very excited for this project. We foresee it being a cafe or restaurant on the ground floor, and then 3 residential units above. You might see there, I think there might be some renderings included in the report as well. And the name on the building, Hespresso, is just a cheeky name, but not necessarily what the end user will will actually be. That was just us having a little bit of fun. And yeah, so we're really excited because when we got involved, like I think the building was pretty much in the state of disarray that you kind of see if you walk by it or you see it on Street View. So it was part of this rezoning that took us until spring of last year. So it's been a long time coming. We're really looking forward to renovating and improving this property. Right now, like while we were still going through this particular process, we had our architect working away on more detailed building permit drawings, which we would submit to the building department once this stage is completed. And just trying to see, I jotted down a couple notes just to see if there's anything else, but I think Karen, you covered off a lot there. So our intention, I guess I could just add that our intention was to start construction this summer on the project, and hopefully have it completed by around the end of this year.
All right, nice. Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions from the committee? We've all seen the document. Alyssa, do you see anybody who wants?
Not seeing any, which I'm surprised. It's such a exciting and complex project, but you presented it so well.
I want to sit on that patio right now.
I know, you and me both, Karen. We're gonna have an espresso together.
Espresso.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't have any questions, and if there's none from the committee, all right then. Could we see the conditions, please, Alyssa?
Just pulling those up. As Michael mentioned, there's quite an extensive conservation plan submitted with this, so lots of detail. So we just have our 2 standard conditions. Although given the extent of work being done here, we are recommending a 3-year instead of a 2-year expiry, just to leave all the necessary time for it to be completed. And we just added in our standard condition about the masonry restoration guidelines being adhered to for any masonry work.
Okay. Okay, that's, all right, do we have a mover and a seconder to put the recommend approval of this heritage permit 2024-005, subject to these recommended conditions from the staff? We have a mover and a seconder, please. I see Steve and I see Katie. I can see 2 people. Okay, thank you. And are there any opposed?
Seeing none.
Okay, hearing none, that motion is carried. So that's great. Very positive project. Thank you very much for coming in. Very excited to see it. Yeah. And you said you were thinking of having it completed by the end of the year? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's our goal, like, or at least substantially completed by the end of the year. I guess it just depends on when our permit is issued and how much we can get done. If we could get everything done before it gets cold, then I think that we'd move inside and finish up the inside right away. If that's not the case, then it might be, the spring once things warm up and we can finish off some of the other exterior elements. But it's full steam ahead. We're really happy to get through this stage.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in to speak with us this afternoon, Michael, and appreciate you waiting all this time.
Oh,
So,
no worries at all. I didn't know if we needed a bathroom break after the last one, so I
no, we don't have those.
not allowed. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
pleasure seeing you all. Thanks again.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, so for the committee, then there is one point of other business, which is the appointment to the Cross Melville Heritage Committee. No, what's it called?
Cross Melville Heritage Conservation District Advisory Committee.
That's it. Okay. So, should I hand it over to you, Alyssa, for this?
Sure, I can assist. So it's a bit of a formality. So we do try to cross appoint from permit review and our main heritage committee to this, I guess, subcommittee that deals with just the Cross Melville Heritage District. And there is a requirement in the terms of reference for that to be a Dundas representative on each of our permit review subcommittee and main heritage committee. And as far as I am aware, Karen is the only Dundas representative. And we have chatted about it and she is willing, but we need to formally go through the process if we could get a nomination for that cross appointment.
I will
Make a
nominate.
nomination. Oh,
I think Katie beat you to it, so thank you, Katie.
all right, cheers.
And Karen, do you accept your nomination?
Yes, I would accept the nomination. Thank you.
Fantastic. Anyone opposed to Karen being cross-appointed? Seeing none, then that will carry. And congratulations, Karen. Thank you so much for stepping up and agreeing to be cross-appointed. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your confidence in me. Okay, I guess there's an item here about, oh yes, right. So the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee is having its Heritage Recognition Awards on June 13th. And I believe everybody here is invited. Is that correct?
And even members of the public as well. Yeah, I wasn't sure if an invite had made it your way yet, so I wanted to introduce it today. And I'm seeing Katie shake her head, so I will forward along the electronic invite. It only just got sent out last week, so you're not late to the game.
And it's at the Bridgeworks, which is, it's a heritage venue. And I've been to this a few times and it's really inspiring because it's awards to everybody across our whole area in terms of, preserve people who've done a great job on their houses or businesses or whatever, and or be in preserving landscapes. It's a lovely recognition of the dedication that people put into these things. So, and people who get nominated are usually really thrilled. So it's a very nice event. So recommend you all come if you can. There's usually snacks too. So, okay. Now
June 13th.
June 13th.
Okay, cool.
In the evening.
Great.
Yeah, is it? I can't remember the exact time. 6 or something, or 6:30, I think maybe. Is it possible?
I will
And-
send the formal invite to everyone. I don't want to get it
Okay.
wrong.
Yeah.
Either. Okay, thank you. All right. So, if there's any further business, speak now. Okay, if not, may I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn today's meeting? I see
Katie.
Katie
Matthew.
and Matthew. Okay, is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. Thank you. Our next meeting will be scheduled for June 18th. So just after the awards. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for coming this evening. Really appreciate it. Get outside, go to a patio.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Take care.